Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the ZIIGAAT Doscinco. The Doscinco is part of two IEMs which ZIIGAAT launched recently, the Doscinco and the Cinco Tres, and they both have a similar configuration, just do totally different tuning approaches. The Doscinco and the Cinco Tres have two dynamic drivers and three balanced armatures. The dynamic drivers are used, they state an isobaric configuration, but I have my doubts. I guess it will probably be more of a quasi-isobaric or compound kind of loading that you've seen, for example, in the Hype series, or you've seen as well in the Moondrop, the Blessing 3. So something along those lines, while the balanced armatures are two for the mids and one for the highs. The mids, the balanced armatures being used by Sony are different models. One, let's say it's for the mids, the one is for the mids highs, and then the nulls at 335180 is for the highs only. In terms of impedance, they state that it's got a 11 ohm impedance and a sensitivity of 104 dBs, and what I can say is that it's relatively easy to power, and I definitely didn't have to push my Q15 as much. I mean, usually I listen to my Q15 on volume 40-45, which is more than enough for the ZIIGAAT, for the Doscinco, or for the PENON Dome, while to get the same sort of volume from the Cara or from the Hype 2 or from the Canon Mark II, I had to push the volume up to 55, 56 on the Q15. Anyway, this is the box of the ZIIGAAT. Very, simple, nothing, no frills, nothing special. Remove the sleeve, open up the box. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, and of the IEMs came over there. Inside of this box comes the actual, remove this here. Okay, inside of this box comes the carrying case, which I'll show to you in a second. There's absolutely nothing there, and that's it. I mean, in terms of its accessories, the tips are okay, they're nothing special. I ended up using some KB Euro 7s because I found that they just did a better job of getting the seal and the sound that I wanted. So in terms of the tips, I think a slight improvement could be done there. The carrying case is nice, it's got more than enough space, it's got a nice texture here for the logo of ZIIGAAT and so on. And the cable, actually, I swapped out the cable, not that I had to, because the stock cable, believe it or not, is actually pretty decent. It's a 3.5, this one, but you can also get it in 4.4, but it actually measured quite decently. I have to admit that the cable actually measured quite decently, and for quite a few days I listened to it with the stock cable, and then it was just because I wanted to listen to it in balance that I ended up using this Jazeer cable. So as for the IEM itself, it's got that kind of look that we've seen already in terms of the shell shape. It's not a very big shell, considering it's got two dynamic drivers and then plus the three BAs. The shell is actually quite small. I mean, I recently reviewed the feet, and comparatively to the feet from Tansio Mirai, this is smaller. Well, I wouldn't say smaller, but it's slightly slimmer than the Tansio Mirai, and that's only got three drivers inside there. But anyway, that's just that's not even a criticism. It's just showing what it is, the reality. I like the fact that, and this is something I would like more brands to do, I like the fact that they actually got to the trouble of putting the name of the IEM on the IEM itself, because so many times you have IEMs which are exactly the same or very similar, and you don't know exactly what it is. You forget or you confuse yourself, and trust me, when you've got a lot of IEMs, it's quite easy to happen. Anyway, fit is nice, no issues with the fit. Fits perfectly. It uses a 2-pin connector, as you can see. No switches, no adjustable tuning nozzles, no nothing. So in that aspect, it's as simple as can be. Price, be it of the Doscinco or the Cinco Tres, it's $245 if I'm not mistaken, from Linsoul, obviously, where I got this unit. And that's basically it. I mean, there's really not much more than I can say with regards to the build. The build is solid. It's got a nice enough cable, nice enough case. Just the tips, I would have liked to have seen better tips, but not a deal breaker as well. And that's that. So what did I select here to compare and or rather to position the Doscinco, because the comparisons are always very very subjective because of various factors that we've mentioned already before. I've got here the Tension Cara, I've got here the Hype 2, I've got here the Canon, the Mark II, and I've got here the PENON Dome. Yes, the PENON Dome. 1+4, 1+4. Sorry, 1+4, 1+2, 2+2. Let's rewind and start again. 1+4, 2+2, 2+3, 1+4, and 1+2. So all different configurations, which is something that I ideally don't like doing, but I've done it nevertheless to help better position the Doscinco. Some have got the ability to be tuned, which is the case of the Mark II. You got tuning switches which do change the tuning and the sound of the IEN, so that's a plus point that it's got on its favor. While the rest are conventional. In terms of price, we're talking about $165 for the Cara, about $299, slightly cheaper now during the sales, but roughly the usual price of the Hype 2 is $299, $245 for the Doscinco. The Mark II is $342 if I'm not mistaken, and this is $349. So a big variety in terms of price. The reason why they're all here, or the main reason why I actually selected these specific models, is because graphically they all look very similar, and when I show you the graphs in a second, you'll see how actually similar they look. But the interesting part is, however, although they graph very similar, they sound very similar. Two of them, I would say, well, three of them are more difficult to power, as I've mentioned before: the Cara, the Hype 2, and the Canon. While two of them are much easier to power, and you can, you don't need to crank up the volume so much to get them to sound loud, which is the case of these two, the PENON and the Doscinco. They all have that style of bass which is tucked, and then it folds in at anywhere between 200 and 300 hertz. So no to have, or to attempt to have, no bleed into the mids, and then they all have various degrees of pinna gain, but all of them have a pinna gain which tries to kind of peak at around 3K more or less, give or take, and then have either a continued plateau or a continuous gradual slope downwards. Okay, that's in a nutshell as well, gives you already an idea of the tuning here of the Doscinco. So it's got nice big bass emphasis, being two drivers. It's quite noticeable, especially when you go from this to this. You notice a big difference from these two, especially when you crank the volume up. You notice at low volumes maybe not so much, but at the higher volumes you do. In terms of these two, no, the bass is very similar. It's just a question of power. The audio is way more power hungry. And then in terms of the mids, I would say the mids of the Doscinco and the Canon 2 and the PENON are, for the most part, very similar, very equal in terms of the male vocals, female vocals, how the timbre and the tonality and so on comes across. This one is a little bit more recessed. This one, it's not that it's equal, it's just look, for the sake of ease, I will say that the Cara, the Doscinco, the Canon 2 and the PENON, the Dome, all have very similar mids, just for the sake of just being easier for me to position this. The one that does have the noticeably different mids, because they are slightly more recessed, is the Hype 2. And then the highs, they all have again different levels of highs or extension of upper mids, treble, like different levels of extension. The extension of the Doscinco is fine, it's adequate. I never found it to be in any way lacking in anything, and plenty of detail. So much so that, for example, I also went through the Q15 and then a few dongles, the TP50, the TP30 as well, the M15. I also went through my usual here Cayenne and the Yuki. And if on an IM like the Feet, which I just recently reviewed, I did see a difference in terms of what information I was getting up top, upper mids and treble. With the Doscinco, the difference was very, very negligible, because the amount of energy that it has in the upper mids and treble is quite adequate. Having said that, you do notice that, for example, the Canon has got more details up top than the Doscinco. That definitely has. You notice as well that this does have more details up top than the Doscinco. These two have got more refined, more detail up top. The Dome also has more detail, but maybe, I don't know if it's just because it's just two BAs, it reaches a point where it just seems to lose a little bit its elegance and its composure, and it's not that it becomes harsh, but you just feel that it's like, okay, I can go louder, but I'm not comfortable doing it. That you get that kind of sensation, while over here you always feel that it never really runs out of steam. Please try and understand that I'm not saying that the Dome runs out of steam or anything of the sort. No, it just seems like it's not at its best when you really are cranking the volume. Something that the Doscinco does allow for you to scale it quite nicely, and it keeps its composure very nicely. That's the reality. That's the reality. Sound-wise, bass. Nice full bass. I don't really have a preference, and I was going to have the Cinco Tres as well here to compare it or to but I decided not to do that because of the different the styling of tuning that they have. And all of this to say what I like both styles. I like both the tucked and the gliding style. It just depends on how it's done then with the rest of the frequency range. And here in the tucks, it's been done well, in my opinion. It's very nicely done, and it makes specific genres like hip hop and EDM very engaging. It's a very nice to listen, energetic presentation. While by comparison, the Cinco Tres is more laid back, more relaxed. So bass, it's nice. It's got all the weight that it needs to have. Clean, detailed, impactful. I didn't really find it to be sluggish or lacking in any resolving capability. Handled most tracks that I listened to flawlessly. I never really found it to get, let's say, confused or muffled with those tracks with perhaps a little bit more bass intense. Let me see here, for example, just to give you an example, things like I was mentioning earlier in another review that I've been listening to a lot, which I don't know, from Cloud Traum. Perfect, no issues. Tui from FKJ as well, no issues with that. But yeah, let's keep it at that. Let's keep it at that. Let's not complicate it. Mids. Again, I found the mids to be adequate. They match the bass that's present there perfectly. No issues, male and female vocals. I found that maybe the male vocals are the ones that just stand out a little bit more over the female vocals. And why do I say this? Because I found that some female vocals up top, although, like I said, I didn't really lack any detail. When I was listening to specific things, like, for example, I'm going to love you just a little from Bonnie James. Listening to it on the Doscinco and listening to it on the Canon, or even the Dome, these two have got just a little bit extra more detail, a little bit more, I don't know, there's just a little bit more there, and more noticeable on something like Feels So Good from Diane Reeves. You notice it. You notice the Canon and the Dome just have that little extra amount of detail to just give that specific song a little bit more life. Or even button up your overcoat, the same situation. Having said that, I'm not saying that this doesn't do those songs well. No, it does those songs well. These two just have that little extra to give it that little extra little bit more engagement, let's put it that way. But look, all the differences are very minor. The differences between these three were surprisingly minor, let's put it that way. Surprisingly minor. I was expecting bigger differences, and they were surprisingly minor. The difference between these three here, the Doscinco, the The Audio, and the Cara, are more noticeable because the styles, although graphically it's one thing, the styles vary very much. This does definitely have more recessed mids as compared to that, but it's got that extra detail up top that makes up for it. So it becomes it's like I said, it's got that more V type of signature, but it's quite I can't find the correct word. You listen to the hype, and when you do a comparison like I've done back to back, or Doscinco hype Doscinco, and the hype gives you a sensation of just being a little bit more hi-fi, while the Doscinco is a little bit more rough around the edges. It still does it really well, but more rough around the edges. I hope I was able to convey what I'm trying to explain. As compared to the Cara, the Cara is, I mean, it is a good IM, and it does a commendable job. But you notice a big jump from the Cara to the Doscinco. You notice that everything just goes up quite a bit. There's a difference here. So there's a well justified price difference here. Let's put it that way. That's good for what it costs, no doubt, amazing. But this does justify costing an extra $70 or $80 over that, definitely. All right. So that's it. So base is well done, mids are well done as well. The highs are, again, well done, just more relaxed. So I would say that the star of the show here is definitely the bass and the mids, and then the highs just a little bit more laid back, more second plane. No aggressiveness, no harshness, no sibilance, no nothing. I mean, in that aspect, very well tuned. They've done a fantastic tuning on the Doscinco. Technically, look, imaging, I would have liked slightly better imaging. I'm not going to deny it, especially when you enter this price. There are things that you want that to be there, and that's where, for example, you see the differences occurring to the Canon, the Mark II. The imaging on the Mark II is better. The sound stage on the Mark II is better. There's more details on the Mark II. There's a difference here which is easily noticeable. Even technically here, surprisingly, this is able to outdo the Doscinco. I would say that maybe on the timbre and the tonality, the Doscinco is the better one, because of the fact that it doesn't have the recessed mids as noticeable as they. But I would still say that the Hype 2 outdoes technically the Doscinco. Slightly better soundstage, slightly better imaging, more resolution, more detailed retrieval. But and again, I repeat myself, I like making sure that this is really embedded into you guys. The differences are not monumental. You pick up on them, you notice them, but you notice them because you have all of them in front of you. Because most likely, if you were just listening to the one and then maybe a couple of days later you listen to the other, you might not even perceive that there is a difference. I see that difference because I've got them in front of me and I can swap out in and out. That's why I always say, if you have the opportunity to listen to the IEM and compare it to maybe some of the IEMs that I mentioned in my comparisons, that would be the ideal, so that you can straight away get a good perception of what I'm talking about. And there you have it, guys. I mean, nice bass, nice mids. The treble is also nice, just a little bit more laid back, more relaxed. Technically, it's fine. I would have liked a little bit more imaging. Like I said, the soundstage, acceptable, timbre and the tonality, or fine. Detail retrieval as well, fine. Look, it's not bad technically, but I was expecting a little bit more. That's all. If I have to be, let's say, if I have to really give a comparison that maybe you'll understand, technically this is on the level of maybe let's say, I would say this is technically on the level of, for example, or actually maybe even slightly below the technical capability of a Performer 5 or of a Pula PA02. Technically, those are better than this technically. Okay, and that's it. I mean, I guess just show you now the graphs, and you can get a final idea of what the Doscinco is about. All right. Take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for the ZIIGAAT Doscinco, and this is the graph straightaway of the Doscinco. So it's got that tuck style of bass. I mean, by 200 it's flat, it blends into the mids perfectly. Pin again is nice and smooth, relaxed, peaks at 3K and kind of then plateaus over. Some of this here is coupler related and then drops off. Let's now start comparing here with some of the IMs which I selected and that do have the same style. First one is, I'll actually show you straight away, is the Tensjum, the Kara. The Kara, as you can see, also very similar in that tuning implementation. Tucked bass, it just dips a little bit later, 300 hertz. But the bass on the ZIIGAAT is just more prominent. It's two drivers, so it's you really can't compare it. At lower volumes, maybe can get away with it a little bit, but the moment you just crank it up a little bit, you notice. And then in terms of the mids and the upper mids and the treble, although they look again very similar, you listen to it on the ZIIGAAT and it just sounds. I was struggling earlier to try and explain it to you, and the truth is this: it just on the Kara it just sounds rough by comparison. The ZIIGAAT just has a very nice smoothness to it, although it lacks a little bit more treble than the Kara, and the Kara does have a little bit more extension past 10K. You don't perceive it as such, and it just like I said, it's just about the smoothness of one versus the other. Okay, so that's the Kara. Next one I'm going to show you is the Yanyan Canon, the Mark II, and again, as you can see, this is the Yanyan in the 1:1 setting. Again, very similar graph, as you can see, very similar, but the Yanyan in terms of its mids and highs, it's just more detailed. There's more information there. It's just better executed. It's just more polished. I would say that coupled to the fact that it's you got the tuning switches that you can adjust, that justifies, in my opinion, the price jump of $100, give or take. It justifies. For me, it does. It's got the Canon also comes nicely accessorized, nice case, nice cable, nice tips. It justifies it. You are doing an upgrade, definitely, and technically the Canon is superior. I mean, there is where you notice the biggest differences, is technically. So that's the Canon out of the way. Next one is the Hype. The Hype, again, in terms of the bass, it's very similar. And then the thing between the Hype and the ZIIGAAT is, because the Hype has got that extension past 10 and it's got definitely more energy there in the treble, you notice that this helps it be a little bit, there's a little bit more detailed retrieval, there's a little bit more twinklies and spark, there's a little bit more imaging, resolution is just slightly better, and maybe that can be enough to justify the price difference there of roughly $50. I honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. I found myself, and I like the Hype too. So pay attention to what I'm about to say. I do like the Hype too, but somehow I was more able to, let's say, give up that extra detail that I've got here for a presentation which is just more balanced in terms of the upper mids and bass on the ZIIGAAT side than on the Hype. You just notice more the V on the Hype than you do on the ZIIGAAT. I mean, the ZIIGAAT, if you look at it carefully, and I think that's a good way for you to understand how well it's tuned. This 76 to 82, this sits within a 7 dB window from 100 hertz up. That's testament that it's been well tuned. That and then it's only below 100 that it goes up, and it goes up to. So we have a difference of, so it's a 10 dB peak in the bass, but from 100 hertz, so from there, everything sits within 7 dBs. That's really good. The Hype, on the other hand, if you notice, and let's take the same 100 hertz, everything sits within 76, 84, no, 100 hertz is still not there. Everything sits within 10 dBs, a 10 dB window, okay, roughly a 10 dB window. and I'm being actually nice because I'm really giving it the margin of 70 hertz. I'm allowing it a little bit more margin to kind of, because to capture more or less it's more V. It's noticeable. I'm sure you guys are understanding what I'm trying to explain. It's just more V-shaped. So of the two, I think I would probably opt still for the ZIIGAAT, although I do like the hype, and the ZIIGAAT also has another plus point, which is the fact it's way easier to power than the T audio. And then finally the dome. Again, you were wondering why I've got it's not normalized at 500 hertz like I did the rest of them, and the reason why I did it this way, it's because that's how I actually that's how it comes across. It doesn't come across if I normalize it at 500 hertz, it doesn't come across that way. And I think this is down to more of a purposely done dip here to separate more the waters, and for you to not notice then that the bass is bleeding into the mids than anything else. As for the rest, the reality is this. I mean, okay, fair enough, one is 2 BAs, the other one is 3 BAs, so there's not really a big difference there. But the mids on the dome, the upper mids and the treble are every bit as good as the ZIIGAAT, and they still have a little extra more detail. First of all, because there's a little bit more energy here in this 1 to 2K, so the transition from mids to upper mids does allow the vocals, especially the female vocals, to just have a little bit of added energy, which is a plus point. And then the top here, there's just a little bit extra detail there. I can't really understand why, because graphically you wouldn't say that, but it's just a little bit more detail up top. The difference, however, between the ZIIGAAT and the dome, and the ZIIGAAT and the Canon, you notice more difference to the Canon than you do to the ZIIGAAT. You notice more difference from the ZIIGAAT to the Canon than you notice from the ZIIGAAT to the dome. So if I would say that yes, the Canon is a worthwhile upgrade, not only because it has the switches, but because you notice that there's a significant jump in the overall quality of the presentation with regards to the dome. And again, I say this, I like the dome. I think the dome, there's not enough there to justify that price jump of also $100. I think the dome, if it was priced just slightly lower, it would be more competitive. If the dome was priced at, let's say, the same price as the T audio, then I would say yes, okay, that makes sense to do that jump, because we would only be talking about a $50 jump. $100 jump, I don't know. And mind you, the dome does bring a nice case, it does bring nice accessories, it does bring all of that, but ultimately, it's the sound, and the sound of the ZIIGAAT, the Doscinco, and the dome, you don't perceive such a huge difference, or at least I didn't perceive such a big difference a lot of the times. Okay, that's it, guys. I hope I was able to, like I said, clarify things with regards here to the Doscinco. I'll be doing a similar video, but on the Cinco 3, and then maybe kind of doing a small added comparison between the Doscinco and the Cinco 3. But I thought it was interesting, or it would be more interesting to kind of separate them completely, because they are two different IEMs with two different tuning styles. And that's it. Anyway, if you do have the opportunity to listen to the Doscinco, I would say yes, definitely do listen to it. Otherwise, look, I'm not going to tell you to go outright and buy it, because it's not the correct thing for me to do ethically. But that it is a solid IEM, it definitely is, and I enjoyed my listening experience, and I will definitely be listening to it a lot more. There are a few IEMs that when I am done with reviews, that I know that I'll probably never listen to them again, and I just put them aside. But there are those that I know I will continue listening to them, and the Doscinco definitely will be one of those, because I did enjoy it. That's the reality. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to reply as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.